You are not lazy, and you do not have a time management issue. You have an emotional regulation problem. You avoid learning English or building your future not because you lack ability, but because your brain perceives discomfort and effort as a physical threat that must be escaped. Stop negotiating with your weakness. Today, we are going to completely reprogram your brain. You wake up with clarity. At least, that's what you tell yourself. There is a brief moment in the morning, before the noise begins, where your mind feels almost capable. You think about learning English. You think about improving your career. You think about becoming the kind of person who actually follows through. And for a few seconds, it feels real. Then you reach for your phone, not because you consciously decide to sabotage your day, not because you're weak, but because it's automatic. Familiar, easy. You tell yourself, just a quick check. And this is where the day begins to slip. 5 minutes turns into 20. 20 turns into 45. You scroll through headlines you won't remember, videos that mean nothing, conversations that don't move your life forward. Your brain wakes up, but in the worst possible way. Fragmented, overstimulated, already pulled in 10 different directions before you've even begun. Think about that. Before you've done a single meaningful action, your attention has already been spent. Now you sit down to do the thing that actually matters. Maybe it's studying English. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's focus work. And suddenly, something feels heavy. Your mind resists. The same task that felt inspiring just an hour ago now feels distant, unclear, almost uncomfortable to even begin. So you hesitate. You open another tab. You check your messages again. You reorganize your desk. You tell yourself you're getting ready. But you're not. You're avoiding. Let me show you how subtle this is. You sit down with your English book open in front of you. You read the first sentence. It feels slightly difficult. Not impossible, but not effortless either. Your brain registers that tiny discomfort. And almost instantly, without you even realizing it, your hand moves. You pick up your phone. You unlock it. You scroll. Just for a moment. Except it's never just a moment. 40 minutes later, you look up. There's a quiet tension in your chest. A subtle guilt you don't want to fully acknowledge. You haven't done anything truly difficult. But somehow, you already feel tired. This is the part most people misunderstand. You didn't work hard, but your brain is exhausted. Because constant switching, task to phone, phone to thought, thought to distraction, burns cognitive energy at a shocking rate. Every shift fractures your focus. Every interruption leaves a residue in your mind. By the time you try to return to real work, your mental clarity is already gone. So what do? You delay. You tell yourself, I'll start later. And later becomes evening. Now the day is almost over. You think about everything you planned to do and everything you didn't do. You feel that quiet disappointment. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a steady awareness that you are not living up to your own standard. And here's the most dangerous part. You make a promise. Tomorrow will be different. You say it with sincerity. You believe it. But nothing changes. Because the problem was never your intention. It was never your intelligence. And it was never your potential. It's the invisible loop you're trapped in. A loop where your brain is constantly pulled toward what is easy, immediate, and emotionally comfortable, and away from anything that requires sustained effort. A loop where you mistake movement for progress. A loop where you end the day mentally drained without building anything meaningful. Let me ask you something. How many days have you lived like this? How many times have you told yourself the same story and expected a different outcome? And more importantly, how long are you willing to keep repeating it? Because if you don't understand what's actually happening inside your brain, this pattern will not fix itself. It will quietly become your life. What you are experiencing is not laziness. It feels like laziness. It looks like laziness from the outside. But underneath, something far more precise and far more dangerous is happening. Your brain has been trained, conditioned, rewired. And once you understand how this conditioning works, your entire perception of discipline begins to change. Because the real problem is not that you lack willpower. The real problem is that your brain is addicted to a specific type of reward. Fast, easy, predictable dopamine. Let's slow this down. Dopamine is often misunderstood. People think it's the chemical of pleasure. It's not. It's the chemical of anticipation. It is what drives you to seek, to click, to check, to refresh. It fuels the urge, not the satisfaction. And in a modern environment where stimulation is infinite, this system becomes overloaded. Every time you scroll, every time you watch a short video, every time you check your phone and see something new, your brain receives a small, fast spike of dopamine. It's quick, it's effortless, and most importantly, it requires nothing from you. No struggle, no uncertainty, no cognitive strain. Now, compare that to something like learning English. You sit down to read. You don't understand every word. You have to slow down. You have to think. You have to tolerate confusion. From a neurological perspective, this is expensive. It requires energy, focus, patience, and your brain does not interpret that as growth. It interprets it as friction, even as a mild threat. So what does it do? It looks for relief, and it knows exactly where to find it. This is where the shift happens. Over time, your brain begins to associate effort, discomfort, avoidance, relief, and that relief is rewarded every single time. Now, here's the consequence most people never fully see. The more you choose easy stimulation, the less sensitive your brain becomes to it. This is called dopamine desensitization. What used to feel satisfying now feels normal. What used to hold your attention now feels boring. So you need more stimulation, more novelty, more intensity, just to feel engaged. And at the same time, your tolerance for effort decreases. Tasks that require focus start to feel heavier than they actually are. Reading feels slow. Thinking feels exhausting. Even starting feels overwhelming. Not because the task changed, but because your brain did. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone? When was the last time you focused on one thing without switching? For most people, that ability is quietly disappearing. And this is where motivation enters a conversation and completely misleads you. You've been taught to wait for motivation, to rely on it, to believe that one day you'll feel ready. But motivation is not a stable force. It is an emotional state. And like all emotions, it fluctuates. It rises when something is new, exciting, or easy. And it disappears the moment reality introduces resistance. So when you say, I just need more motivation, what you're really saying is, I need the task to feel easier than it is. But real growth never feels easy at the beginning, which means if you rely on motivation, you are building your progress on something that is designed to disappear. Think about your own pattern. You feel inspired. You start strong. 2 days, maybe 3. Then the resistance shows up, the boredom, the friction, and suddenly everything slows down. You hesitate. You skip one day, then another, and before you realize it, you're back at the beginning, confused about what went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You followed your biology, and that is the uncomfortable truth. Your current habits are not random. They are the result of repeated neurological reinforcement. Every time you escape discomfort, you strengthen a habit of escape. Every time you choose stimulation over effort, you reinforce that pathway. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is always adapting, but it adapts to what you repeatedly do, not what you intend to do. So if your daily pattern is avoid, distract, relieve, then your brain becomes better at avoiding, better at distracting, and more dependent on relief. And this is where it becomes dangerous, because eventually you stop questioning the pattern. You start identifying with it. You begin to say, this is just how I am, but it's not who you are. It's what you practice. And anything practiced can be rewired, but only if you stop misunderstanding the problem. Because as long as you call this laziness, you will keep looking for motivation. And as long as you keep looking for motivation, you will stay trapped in the same loop. There's a story that gets repeated often about Kobe Bryant, not because it sounds impressive, but because it reveals something most people are unwilling to accept. Kobe would begin training at 4 a.m., not occasionally, not when he felt inspired, consistently. While the world was asleep, he was already deep into repetition, shooting, drilling, refining the same fundamental movements again and again. Now pause for a second. Most people hear that and immediately translate it into something comfortable. They say, he was just more motivated. But that explanation is not only wrong, it's dangerous, because it allows you to dismiss discipline as something you don't have. Kobe did not wake up at 4 a.m. because it felt good. He woke up at 4 a.m. because it was decided. There is a difference, a massive one. When a decision is truly made, it removes negotiation. And most people live in constant negotiation with themselves. I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it when I feel ready. I just need the right mood. Kobe eliminated that entire conversation. His system was simple. Wake up, train, repeat. No drama, no overthinking, no emotional dependency. And here's the part that matters even more. What he did during those sessions was not exciting. It wasn't highlight reel material. It was boring, painfully repetitive. The same shots, the same footwork, the same drills, thousands of times. No applause, no audience, no immediate reward, just silence and execution. Think about how that contrasts with your current environment. You are surrounded by stimulation, constant novelty, endless variation. Your brain is trained to expect something new every few seconds. And because of that, repetition feels unbearable. Boredom feels like something to escape. But Kobe built his entire identity inside that boredom. He didn't chase excitement. He mastered the fundamentals. And that is why he became elite. Let me ask you something. When you sit down to study English, how quickly do you get bored? How quickly do you look for something more stimulating? A different video, a different method, a quicker way. Because your brain has been trained to chase variation, not depth. Kobe did the opposite. He reduced variation. He increased depth. And over time, that created something most people never achieve: automatic excellence. His movements became precise, efficient, effortless, not because he found a shortcut, but because he repeated the same actions until his brain rewired itself around them. This is neuroplasticity at the highest level. Repetition reinforcement identity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Kobe's greatness was not built in moments of intensity. It was built in long stretches of monotony. The kind of monotony most people avoid at all costs. Early mornings, empty gyms, no recognition, just a quiet discipline of doing the work again and again and again. Now, bring this back to your life. You are trying to build a skill like English, but you are approaching it emotionally. You want it to feel engaging. You want it to feel rewarding. You want it to feel smooth. But skill acquisition does not work that way. At the beginning, it is slow, awkward, mentally demanding, and yes, boring. That is not a flaw in the process. That is the process. Kobe didn't wait for the work to feel good. He became the kind of person who does the work regardless of how it feels. That shift from feeling-based action to identity-based action is everything. Because once your identity changes, your behavior follows automatically. You don't ask, do I feel like practicing today? You operate from something deeper. This is what I do. And that is what most people never build. They stay stuck in the cycle of starting and stopping because they are still negotiating with their emotions. Kobe removed emotion from the equation, not completely, but enough that it no longer controlled his behavior. And that is why his system worked. Not because it was extreme, but because it was consistent, relentless, simple. Let me ask you one more question. Are you trying to feel motivated, or are you trying to become someone who executes regardless of how you feel? Because those are two completely different paths. One leads to temporary bursts of effort. The other leads to mastery. And most people never realize which one they are actually choosing. Up to this point, it might still feel abstract. You understand that you're distracted. You understand that your brain is chasing easy rewards. You understand that motivation is unreliable, but there is still one missing piece, the mechanism. Because once you see the mechanism clearly, something shifts. You stop taking your behavior personally, and you start seeing it as a system, a loop, a predictable pattern that runs whether you're aware of it or not. Most people never notice this loop. They only experience the outcome. I wasted time. I didn't do what I planned. I feel unproductive. But those are just surface-level symptoms. Underneath, there's a 4-part cycle running your day with precision. Trigger, craving, response, reward. And once this loop is installed, it begins to operate automatically. Let's walk through it slowly. Imagine this. You sit down to study English. That moment, right before you begin, is the trigger. It's subtle, but your brain immediately evaluates the situation. Is this easy or difficult? Is this familiar or uncertain? Will this require effort? And almost instantly it detects friction, not extreme pain, just mild discomfort. But that's enough. That discomfort creates the second stage, craving, not a craving for English, a craving for relief. Your brain doesn't say out loud, but the signal is clear. Get me out of this. Now comes the third stage, response. This is where your behavior appears. You reach for your phone. You open a new tab. You check something irrelevant. You shift away from the task. And the moment you do that, the fourth stage arrives, reward, relief, instant, effort disappears, discomfort fades, your brain relaxes. And here's the critical part. Your brain records that sequence, effort, escape, relief, and it marks as successful. That matters more than you think, because the brain is not designed to pursue meaning. It is designed to reinforce what works. And in this case, escaping worked. So the next time you face a similar trigger, the loop runs faster, stronger, more automatic. You don't think, I should avoid this. You just do it. This is how habits are formed, not through logic, but through repetition of reward. Let me show you how deep this goes. It's not just studying. It's your entire day. You feel a moment of boredom, you check your phone. You feel a slight stress, you scroll. You feel uncertainty, you distract yourself. Over time, your brain builds a powerful association. Any discomfort escape immediately, and this is where it becomes dangerous. Because now, discomfort itself becomes intolerable, even small amounts, even the kind required for growth. Let me ask you something. Can you sit with a difficult sentence in English without reaching for relief? Can you stay with confusion for more than 30 seconds? Or does your mind immediately try to exit? Most people never train this. They train the opposite. They train escape. And every time they escape, they strengthen the loop. Now here's something even more subtle. The reward is not just relief. It's also stimulation. Your phone doesn't just remove discomfort. It replaces it with something more appealing. Bright visuals, new information, endless novelty. So now your brain learns two things at once. Effort is uncomfortable distraction, is rewarding that combination is incredibly powerful because it creates a clear preference. And preferences, repeated over time, become identity. You start to feel like the kind of person who can't focus. But what's actually happening is simpler. You practice not focusing. You reinforce distraction thousands of times. Think about that. Every scroll, every quick escape, every moment you avoided effort, you were training your brain, not intentionally, but effectively. And here's the part most people never confront. If you do not interrupt this loop, it does not stay the same. It intensifies. Your tolerance for effort continues to drop. Your need for stimulation continues to rise. And slowly, almost invisibly, your ability to do deep, meaningful work begins to disappear. Not because you lost intelligence, but because you lost control of your attention. And attention is everything. It determines what you build, what you learn, who you become. So the real question is not, why am I lazy? The real question is, what system am I reinforcing every single day? Because right now, whether you realize it or not, you are training your brain. The only question is, toward what? Toward distraction or toward discipline? And if you're honest, you already know the answer. At this point, you understand the system. You see the loop. You recognize yourself in it. But let me ask you something very directly. Are you just listening? Or are you actually preparing to change something? Because there is a difference, a dangerous one. Understanding creates the illusion of progress. It feels productive to hear this. It feels like you're doing something meaningful. Your brain is engaged. You're nodding along. But nothing in your life changes from understanding alone. The loop we just described, it doesn't break because you agree with it. It breaks when you interrupt it. And most people never do. They consume content like this the same way they scroll social media, passively, absorbing ideas, feeling a temporary sense of clarity, and then going right back to the same patterns. So pause for a second. Not later. Now. Make a decision. Not a vague intention. Not another promise you'll forget tonight. A decision. Are you going to continue living inside this loop? Escaping discomfort, chasing easy dopamine, delaying the life you say you want? Or are you going to step out of it? Because what comes next is not theory. It's not insight. it's execution. And if you're not willing to apply it, then nothing you've heard so far will matter. Now we move from understanding to control, because insight without execution is just another form of distraction. What you need is not more information. You need a system that works even when you don't feel like it. A system that bypasses resistance, reduces friction, and slowly retrains your brain through repetition. Not intensity, not motivation. Repetition. This is where most people fail. They try to change everything at once. They rely on willpower. They aim too high, too fast, and collapse under the weight of their own expectations. So we do the opposite. We make it smaller, simpler, almost trivial. And that is exactly why it works. Underscore, 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 underscore. Step 1. The 2-minute rule. Breaking the wall. The first barrier you need to understand is not effort. It's initiation. Starting is the hardest part. Not because the task is difficult, but because your brain perceives it as expensive. So instead of trying to force yourself into a full session of study or work, you shrink the task. Radically, your only goal is to begin for 2 minutes. Not 30, not 20, 2. That's it. Now this might sound almost pointless, but it's not. Because what you are really doing here is bypassing the brain's threat detection system. When the task feels large, your brain resists. When the task feels small, your brain allows it. So instead of saying, I'm going to study English for an hour, you say, I'm going to read 1 paragraph out loud. Or, I'm going to speak 1 sentence in the mirror. And then you begin. No negotiation. No delay. Now here's what happens next, and this is critical. Once you start, something shifts. The resistance drops. Your brain stops fighting because the threat is gone, and often you continue beyond 2 minutes. But even if you don't, it still counts, because you reinforce something far more important than duration. You reinforced identity. I am someone who starts. That matters more than how long you last. Let me ask you something. How many times have you avoided something simply because starting felt too heavy? Now imagine removing that weight entirely. That's what this step does. But there's a mistake you need to avoid. Do not scale too quickly. Do not turn 2 minutes into 30 the next day. That is your old pattern trying to return. Keep it small. Build consistency first. Intensity comes later. Underscore, 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 underscore. Step 2. Burn the escape route. Removing the exit. Now we deal with the second problem. Distraction. Because even if you start, you won't continue if the escape is within reach. You have to understand something clearly. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Every time, if your phone is next to you, you will check it. Not because you're weak, but because the loop we discussed is still active. So instead of relying on discipline to resist distraction, you remove the distraction entirely. You burn the escape route. Physically, practically, immediately. Put your phone in another room, not face down, not silent, gone. Close unnecessary tabs. Turn off notifications. Clear your workspace until only 1 task remains visible. Now your environment sends a different signal. There is nothing else to do, and this changes your behavior more than motivation ever could. Let me give you a simple but real scenario. You sit down to study. Your phone is next to you. You tell yourself, I won't check it. 5 minutes later, there's a small moment of difficulty, a word you don't understand, a sentence that slows you down. That's the trigger. Your brain looks for relief, and the phone is right there, within reach. You don't even think. You just move. And just like that, the loop continues. Now imagine the same situation, but your phone is in another room. That same moment of discomfort appears. But this time, there is no immediate escape, no quick reward. So something different happens. You stay, not because you're stronger, but because the environment removed the easy option. And over time, this builds real focus, not forced, trained. But again, there's a mistake. People underestimate this step. They think, I can control it. No, you can't. Not yet. Because if you could, you wouldn't be stuck. Respect the system. Change the environment. Underscore. Step 3. Fall in love with boredom. Rewiring the brain. This is a step most people avoid. And it's the one that changes everything. You have to stop treating boredom as a problem. Because boredom is not the enemy. It is the gateway. Right now, your brain is conditioned to escape boredom immediately. Silence feels uncomfortable. Repetition feels pointless. Stillness feels unnatural. That is not normal. That is conditioning. And if you want to reverse it, you have to retrain your brain to stay, to sit, to repeat, without needing constant stimulation. This is where neuroplasticity works in your favor. Every time you stay with a task, without escaping, you weaken the old loop and you build a new one. Effort stay progress at first. It will feel uncomfortable, even frustrating. You will want to switch tasks. You will want to check something. You will feel the urge to escape. That's expected. That's the rewiring process. Don't fight the feeling. Outlast it. Because on the other side of that discomfort, something powerful begins to form. Focus, depth, control. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you did one thing without interruption for 20 minutes? No switching. No checking. No stimulation. For most people, that ability is gone, but it can be rebuilt, one session at a time. Now here's how you apply this practically. You choose one simple activity, reading, listening, speaking, and you repeat it daily. Same time, same structure, no variation, no constant searching for better methods. You go deeper, not wider, because mastery does not come from variety. It comes from repetition. And yes, it will feel boring. That's the point. Because when you stop needing excitement to act, you become dangerous. You become consistent. You become the kind of person who executes regardless of mood. And that is where real freedom begins. Underscore. Now step back and look at what you built. You start small. You remove distraction. You stay with the process. That's it. No complexity. No hacks. Just a system that aligns with how your brain actually works. And if you follow it, not perfectly, but consistently, something begins to change. Quietly, at first, then permanently. Because you are no longer trying to fight your brain. You are retraining it. Now slow down for a moment. No more systems. No more steps. Just you and the truth you've been avoiding. Because everything we've talked about up to this point, dopamine, distraction, discipline, it all leads here to a single question. What kind of life are you actually building right now? Not the one you imagine, not the one you say you want, the one your daily actions are quietly constructing. Because your life is not shaped by your intentions. It is shaped by what you repeat. Every day you choose ease over effort, you are not just taking a break. You are casting a vote for a weaker version of yourself. Every time you avoid something difficult, you are reinforcing a pattern. Not once, but neurologically, permanently, until you interrupt it. So let me ask you something. If someone followed you for a week and copied your exact habits, would they become better? Or would they slowly lose control of their focus, their energy, and their direction? Think about that, because that is exactly what you're doing to yourself. Now take it further. If nothing changes, if you continue living exactly like this, avoiding discomfort, chasing easy stimulation, delaying meaningful work, who are you in 5 years? Not the optimistic version, the honest one. Are you sharper or more distracted? More confident or quietly frustrated? Closer to your potential or further away from it than ever before? This is not a dramatic question. It's a logical one, because small daily patterns do not stay small. They compound in one direction or the other. And here's the part most people don't want to face. You don't suddenly become disciplined, and you don't suddenly lose control. Both happen gradually, silently, until one day you look at your life and realize you either built something or you didn't. Let me ask you something more direct. Right now in your current state, do you trust yourself? Do you trust that when you say you're going to do something, you will actually do it? Or have you trained yourself to break your own word so many times that it no longer carries weight? Because that is the real cost of this cycle. It's not just wasted time. It's broken self-trust. And without that, nothing else holds. Not your goals, not your plans, not even your identity. Now pause again, because this next question matters more than all the others. If you continue surrendering to comfort today, what lesser version of yourself will you be forced to meet 5 years from now? And when you meet that version, will you recognize yourself? Or will there be a quiet realization that you had more in you and you never used it? This is not about guilt. It's about awareness. Because once you see the pattern, clearly you can no longer pretend you don't have a choice. And that is where responsibility begins. Now understand this clearly. You are not operating in a neutral environment. Every app, every platform, every notification you receive has been engineered with one objective: to capture your attention, to hold it, and to keep you coming back. Not because it benefits your life, but because your attention is valuable. And the longer they keep it, the more you lose. This is not accidental. It is systematic, which means if you are not actively protecting your focus, you are being trained to lose it, slowly, daily, without noticing. And here's where it becomes uncomfortable, because in this system, inaction is not harmless. Doing nothing is not staying the same. It is falling behind. Every day you remain in the loop, scrolling, avoiding, delaying. You are not pausing your growth. You are reinforcing your decline. Your ability to focus weakens. Your tolerance for effort drops. Your standards quietly lower, not in one dramatic moment, but in small, repeated decisions that feel insignificant at the time. Let me ask you something. How long do you think you can continue like this before the gap between who you are and who you could be becomes impossible to ignore? Because that gap is already forming, and it does not close on its own. It widens until one day it demands an answer. This is where everything becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Because at this point, you don't need more explanation. You don't need another strategy. You don't need more time. You need a decision. A clean one. A final one. You either continue negotiating with yourself or you stop. Right here. Understand this. Every time you say tomorrow, you're not making a plan. You are creating distance. Distance between who you are and who you could become. Tomorrow is comfortable. It removes pressure. It allows you to feel like you're in control without actually doing anything. But in reality, it is a language of delay. And delay compounds. One day becomes a week becomes a year, and suddenly you're looking at a version of your life that feels smaller than it should be. Not because you lacked intelligence, but because you kept postponing action. So we remove that word completely, not reduce it, not manage it, eliminate it. There is no tomorrow. There is only now. And what you do in this moment is not small. It is identity. Because identity is not built through intention. It is built through action, repeated, reinforced, lived. So, if you want to become someone disciplined, you don't think about discipline. You act immediately. Let me make this concrete. When this video ends, there are only two paths. You close it and do nothing. Maybe you feel inspired for a few minutes. Maybe you tell yourself, that was powerful. And then your day continues exactly the same. Or you interrupt the pattern. Right now, not later, not after one more scroll. Now, you take one action. Small, almost insignificant, but real. You pick up a notebook and write one sentence in English. You open a page and read one paragraph out loud. You stand in front of a mirror and speak. Even if it's awkward, even if it's imperfect, you begin. That's it. No performance. No perfection. No waiting. Because that single action does something most people underestimate. It breaks the loop. It sends a new signal to your brain. I did not escape anymore. And the moment that signal is repeated, something starts to shift. Slowly at first, then permanently. This is how discipline is built. Not through intensity, but through proof. Proof that you act when you say you will. Proof that your word means something. Proof that you are no longer controlled by discomfort. Let me ask you something one last time. If you cannot control what you do for the next 2 minutes, what makes you think you can control your life? Think about that. Because control is not something you declare. It is something you demonstrate, moment by moment, choice by choice. And right now you are at a decision point, not a motivational high, not a temporary feeling, a decision to either continue reinforcing the same patterns or to step out of them. No one is coming to force you. No system will save you. No future version of yourself will magically fix this. It is you now, so act like it matters. Because it does, more than you think. If you are ready to stop lying to yourself with the word tomorrow, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment committing to your new standard, and execute your first disciplined action right now.